Welcome back, everybody. These are the best films that came out in 1966. We're going to cover romance, comedy, crime, drama, thriller, horror, biography, war, you name it. We're going to cover it all. So let's see what came out in the year 1966. These are the best films of 1966. Three on a Couch. An artist has an opportunity to go to Paris and wants to bring his fiancée along. Jerry Lewis, Janet Leigh, and Marianne Mobley. Three on a Couch. Next up we have is A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. A wily Roman slave schemes to earn his freedom by romantically uniting his master with a courtesan. Zira Mostel and Phil Silvers. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. Alfie. Unrepentant ladies' man Alfie Elkins gradually begins to understand the consequences of his lifestyle in swingy's 1960s London. Michael Caine, Shelley Winters, and Millicent Martin. Alfie. Alvarez Kelly. During the Civil War, Mexican cattleman Alvarez Kelly supplies the Union with cattle until Confederate Colonel Tom Rosner's hungry men force Kelly to change his customers. William Holden and Richard Widmark. Ambush Bay. A Marine unit on a Japanese-held island in the Philippines tries to hook up with local Filipino guerrillas. Hugh O'Brien and Mickey Rooney. Next up we have is Arabesque. International intrigue in London involving an American university professor, an Arab prime minister, a ruthless businessman, and a beautiful spy. Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren. Arabesque. Ballerina. Meet Sorensen is a student of the Royal Danish Ballet and dreams of becoming a ballerina. Unfortunately, her mother wishes she would live her life as an ordinary girl. Walt Disney's Ballerina. Boy, did I get a wrong number. A seductive starlet flees Hollywood and causes chaos for a real estate agent. Bob Hope, Elkie Summer, and Phyllis Diller. This movie was a gem, one of the best comedy films of 1966. Cast a Giant Shadow. In 1947, following the UN's decision to split British Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, a former U.S. officer is recruited by the Jews to reorganize Haganah. Kirk Douglas and John Wayne. Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round. A paroled con man coordinates the robbery of an LA airport bank with the arrival of the Soviet premier. James Coburn and Camilla Sparv. The Django. A coffin-dragging gunslinger and a prostitute become embroiled in a bitter feud between a clan of Southern racists and a band of Mexican revolutionaries. Franco Nero and Jose Canales. Django. Dracula, Prince of Darkness. 10 years after his demise, Count Dracula is resurrected by a servant and preys on 4 unsuspecting English tourists who have taken shelter in his castle. Christopher Lee and Barbara Shelley. El Dorado. Cole Thornton, a gunfighter for hire, joins forces with old friend Sheriff O'Hara, together with an old Indian fighter and a gambler. John Wayne, Robert Mitchum, and James Caan. Eye of the Devil. Workers employed at a French vineyard quietly follow old pagan rituals that call for the life of the marquee owner to save his crops during the dry season. David Niven and Sharon Tate. The Fat Spy. Off the coast of Florida, a nearly deserted island is rumored to have the Fountain of Youth. A boatload of teenage kids are headed there for a scavenger hunt. Phyllis Diller and Jack E. Leonard. Fireball 500. 2 race car drivers get caught up in a moonshine operation while competing for titles and women. Frankie Avalon, Annette Botticello, and Fabian. R-Man Flint. When scientists use eco-terrorism to impose their will on the world by affecting extremes in the weather, Intelligence Chief Cramden calls in top agent Derek Flint, James Coburn, and Lee Cobb. Follow me, boys. A man settles down in a small town and becomes the scoutmaster. Fred McMurray, Vera Miles, and a young Kurt Russell. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. A wily Roman slave schemes to earn his freedom by romantically uniting his master with a courtesan, Zero Mostel and Phil Silvers. Farce, comedy, and musical. Frankie and Johnny. A riverboat singer with a weakness for gambling wants to find his lucky redhead, but his girlfriend Frankie is not amused. Elvis Presley and Donna Douglas. The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. A timid typesetter hasn't a ghost of a chance of becoming a reporter until he decides to solve a murder mystery and ends up spending a fright-filled night in a haunted house. Don Knotts and Joan Staley. Mothra vs. Godzilla. When opportunistic tycoons refuse to return Mothra's egg to Infant Island, its people must decide if they are willing to answer Japan's own pleas for help when Godzilla arises near Nagoya. Mothra vs. Godzilla. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. A bounty hunting scam joins two men in an uneasy alliance against a third in a race to find fortune and gold. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, and Lee Van Cleef. Grand Prix. American Grand Prix driver Pete Aaron is fired by his Jordan BRM racing team after a crash. James Garner and Eva Marie Saint. Grand Prix. Harper. Cool private investigator Lou Harper is hired by a wealthy California matron to locate her kidnapped husband, Paul Newman, Laura McCall, and Julia Harris. Hawaii. An American missionary and his wife traveled to the exotic island kingdom of Hawaii, intent on converting the natives. Julia Andrews, Max von Sydow, and Richard Harris. Hawaii. Hold On. British beat group Herman's Hermits on tour in the USA is offered an opportunity to have a spaceship named after the group. Comedy musical Hold On featuring Peter Noone and Herman's Hermits. How to Steal $1 Million. The daughter of an art forger teams up with a burglar to steal one of her father's forgeries and protect the secret. Audrey Hepburn, Peter O'Toole, and Eli Wallach. Lord Love-a-Duck. Roddy McDowall and Tuesday Weld. A bright satirical comedy about an innocent high school girl granted her wishes by a student prodigy. Lord Love-a-Duck. A Man Called Flintstone. While preparing for a camping trip, Brent Flintstone is enlisted by the Bedrock Secret Service to capture a criminal mastermind after a spy who looks like him is injured on the job. The Man Called Flintstone. The Professionals. An arrogant Texas millionaire hires 4 adventurers to rescue his kidnapped wife from a notorious Mexican bandit. Burt Lancaster, Lee Marvin, and Robert Ryan. Mr. Budwing. An amnesiac, James Garner, wanders the streets of Manhattan trying to figure out who he is. James Garner, Gene Simmons, and Suzanne Plachette. Navajo Joe. A Native American warrior seeks revenge on the gang of sadistic scalp hunters turned bank robbers who massacred his tribe. Burt Reynolds, Aldo Sambrell, Navajo Joe. Nevada Smith. A half-American Indian and half-white teenager evolves into a hardened killer as he tracks down his parents' murderers. Steve McQueen, Carl Malden, and Brian Keith. Nevada Smith. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? A bitter aging couple with the help of alcohol use their young house debts to fuel anguish and emotional pain towards each other. Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, and George Segal. R-Man Flint. When scientists use eco-terrorism to impose their will on the world by affecting extremes in the weather. James Coburn, Lee Cobb, and Gilla Golan. Paradise, Hawaiian Style. Rick Richards is a helicopter pilot who wants to set up a charter flying secret service in Hawaii. Along the way, he makes some friends, including a young Hawaiian girl. Elvis Presley and Susanna Leigh. Is Paris Burning? August 1944, the Allies are approaching Paris and resistance groups within the city start to plan an uprising against the Germans. Jean-Paul Belmondo and Charles Boyer. Stagecoach. On the stagecoach to Cheyenne, a mixed group of passengers must work together to survive the arduous journey and the Indian attacks. Anne Margaret, Alex Cord, and Red Buttons. Queen of Blood. The year is 1990. An alien species makes contact with Earth through radio transmission. John Saxon, Basil Rathbone, and Judy Meredith. Horror and sci-fi. The Rare Breed. An English woman and her daughter enlist the aid of a cowboy to try and get their hardy hornless bull to mate with the Longhorns of Texas. James Stewart and Maureen O'Hara. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. Without hostile intent, a Soviet submarine runs aground off New England. Men are sent for a boat, but many villagers go into a tizzy, risking bloodshed. Carl Reiner, Eva Marie Saint, and Alan Arkin. Santo versus the Strangler. Santo battles the Strangler. Again, this is the Mexican wrestler who wears a white mask. Great horror film. Next up we have is Seconds. An unhappy middle-aged banker agrees to a procedure that will fake his death and give him a completely new look and identity. Rock Hudson and Frank Campanella. Seconds. Next we have the classic comedy musical romance, Spin Out. Band singer, race driver Mike McCoy must choose between marrying a beautiful rich girl and driving her father's car in a prestigious race. Elvis Presley and Shelley Fabares. The Chase. The citizens of a Texan town become concerned and panicked when a local bad boy escapes prison and heads for his hometown. Marlon Brando and Jane Fonda and Robert Redford. The Endless Summer. The crown jewel to 10 years of Bruce Brown's surfing documentaries. Brown follows two young surfers around the world in search for the perfect wave. The Endless Summer. Next up we have the classic, The Fortune Cookie. A crooked lawyer persuades his brother-in-law to feign a serious injury. Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, and Ron Rich. Buddy comedy, satire, and comedy. The Game is Over. In Paris, Maxime visits his wealthy industrialist father, Alexander, and his beautiful young Canadian wife, Renee. Jane Fonda, Michael Piccoli, and Peter McEnany. The Game is Over. The Glass Bottom Boat. After a series of misunderstandings, the head of an aerospace research laboratory begins to suspect that his new girlfriend is a Russian spy. Doris Day, Rod Taylor, and Arthur Godfrey. The Oscar. Arrogant Hollywood actor Frankie Fain is nominated for the Best Actor Academy Award. Stephen Boyd, Elkie Summer, and Milton Berle. The Oscar. The Sand Pebbles. In 1926, a U.S. naval engineer gets assigned to a gunboat on a rescue mission in war-torn China. The Sand Pebbles. Steve McQueen and Richard Attenborough. The Silencers. Retired agent Matt Helm is reactivated in order to stop an evil organization from exploding an atom bomb over the USA and starting World War III. Parody action-adventure with Dean Martin and Stella Stevens. The Trouble with Angels. Two highly spirited young students at St. Francis Academy keep things hopping for the challenged Mother Superior and her staff of bewildered sisters. Rosalind Russell, Haley Mills, and Biddy Barnes. The Ugly Dachshund. The Garrisons live with a Great Dane who thinks he's a dainty dachshund. His identity crisis results in an uproarious series of household crises that reduce the Garrisons' household to shambles. The Ugly Dachshund, Dean Jones and Suzanne Plachette. The Wrong Box. In Victoria, England, a fortune now depends on which two brothers outlives the other, or can be made to have seemed to do so. John Mills and Michael Caine. The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. Santa has to get a job as Santa to earn money to pay his overdue bill. The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. Paul Tripp and Lydia Brazzi. This Property is Condemned. The dramatic love story of small-town Mississippi girl Alba Starr and railroad official Owen Legate, set during the Great Depression. Natalie Wood, Robert Redford, and Charles Bronson. Torn Curtain. An American scientist publicly defects to East Germany as part of a cloak and dagger mission. Paul Newman, Julie Andrews, and Lila Kidrova. Torn Curtain. A man and a woman, a widow and a widower, find their relationship developing into love, but their past tragedies prove hard to overcome. Anouk Amy and John Louis Trinito. Next thing we have is Walk, Don't Run. During the housing shortages of the Summer Olympic Games in 1964, two men and women share a small apartment in Tokyo, and the older man soon starts playing Cupid to the younger pair, Cary Grant, Samantha Eager, and Jim Hutton. The War of the Gargantuas. A giant cannibalistic humanoid rampage through Tokyo is halted by a more docile twin brother, but neither wants to live. Russ Tamblyn and Kumi Mitsu. Way Out. In a futuristic world, the USA decides to send a married couple of astronauts to its moon base in order to prevent any improper contact with the Soviet female cosmonauts. Jerry Lewis and Connie Stevens. What's Up, Tiger Lily? Woody Allen redubs a Japanese spy film, turning into a comedy. Woody Allen, What's Up, Tiger Lily? Those were the best films of 1966. Which films do you remember that we covered here that were your favorite films, if any? There's some Oscar winners in this selection. Great crime, horror, drama, thrillers, suspense. A lot of movies, a lot of Jerry Lewis movies came out. More Rock Hudson movies came out. Some Western Indian movies came out. A lot of Western themed movies came out. What were your favorite movies of 1966? If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, I'm Tony. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.